So I was tagged in this man's video from a couple of days ago, and he's talking about this topic right here: the childless are ungovernable. And in this, he's talking about how he was at a job when he was childless and he didn't have a mortgage, and how his boss swooped in and was like, "I love it when y'all have kids and y'all have a mortgage because you can't leave. You are basically stuck here." And this goes perfectly with what I talk about when I say things like the birth rate needs to plummet to hell. And I talk about the child free movement because those women have a lot of power because they can just plop up and leave when situations are unattainable or terrible or dysfunctional or chaotic. They can leave. They hate free women. Babies are an anchor. Mortgages are an anchor. And when things suck, and you can just leave, that is freedom. And our governments do not want us to have freedoms.
There's this creator on here that made a TikTok saying about how like the childless are ungovernable. And I think the movement is called like antinatalism. I think that's what it's called. And him talking about like how basically once you have kids, you can't take financial risks, you can't do what you want, you can't be who you want because everything you have to like think about the kids. And it reminds me of this time when I was in my early 20s. I had a boss who once like walked in and there was like a group of salespeople in a room. And I'll never forget the time she literally was like, "Yeah, I love when y'all have mortgages and I love when y'all have kids." Obviously, I didn't have either at the time. She's like, "I love when y'all have mortgages and I love when y'all have kids because that basically means you're like committed to work for me." And that never escaped my mind, where she was basically saying like her most loyal employees like have mortgages and have kids. And I don't have either. And I think that's why, I mean, I've definitely always been like anti-kids since my like teenage years. And of course, everybody's like, "You're going to change your mind. You're going to change your mind." And I'm 32 now. And I unequivocally never, ever want kids because I love my freedom so much. But that's just a little nugget that I want to leave you with.
Now, because that first creator mentioned the childless are ungovernable, I went and I was able to find the TikTok that he was referencing. So this man right here, he made a video and he's talking about an essay. And he put the essay right down there for us all to go out and find, of which I did do that.
I just read the most based Substack essay on antinatalism. The author is super political. He discussed how capitalism needs us all to have a zillion kids to feed its endless demand for cheap labor to exploit. But he also talked about something that hadn't occurred to me, and I have no exposure to the antinatalist stuff, which is that having kids just politically castrates the adults in society. One of the most dramatic examples he gave was people that have kids can't go protest and burn cop cars, but also people with kids can't take financial risks. They'll put up with exploitation and abuse when it comes to wage labor and renting and homes. And capitalism weaponizes people's kids, right? Think of the children. You can't switch jobs this late in life. You're going to fail your kids. You can't risk your safety to go fight for change in some kind of big way because you need to be around to protect your kids, so stay home. And I am deeply antinatalist myself, for deeper reasons than just anti-capitalism, but that is obviously a huge part of it. But anyway, I will be banging the drum about that from now on. You can add that to my rotation of scalding hot political opinions.
So here's the essay. It came out last year, January 2024, by Antonio Melonio. The child free are ungovernable. Why the capitalist ruling class wants you to have as many children as possible. If this essay doesn't support my let the birth rate tumble to hell, I don't know what does, because these people might feel a certain way, but I want things to improve for women and children. And until such time, I want the birth rate to plummet. But many of these points that they make definitely support my assertions. So let's go ahead and read this essay. He says, recently we discussed the rise of antinatalist sentiment among younger generations and why having children has been subverted into a moral dilemma. Today, I want to expand on some of those thoughts and explore an underappreciated reason governments and ruling classes are clamping down on reproduction laws and abortion rights while turning up the please have children to save our collapsing system propaganda to max volume. Control. Growth demands bodies. If you're a longtime Beneath the Pavement reader, you likely hold the view that capitalism is a socioeconomic system based on endless growth on finite resources is inherently unstable. That is just a fact and not a particularly surprising one. Not really interesting, honestly. We've discussed this and related circumstances in significant depth, and there's no need to reiterate well-treaded talking points. Endless growth naturally requires a growing population. While Western societies in recent decades have stopped producing in that regard, the global South has, for better or worse, stepped up and continues to willingly supply an army of fleshy working machines. Those battalions constantly make their perilous way to the West, where they take on jobs Westerners feel too good for when they are not drowning in the Mediterranean, that is. An example, here in Austria, you will struggle to find Austrian construction workers, except in leading roles, of course. Almost all of them are Romanian, Polish, Slavic, Croatian, Bosnian, Serbian, Afghan, Syrian, and so on. My father, one of them. And now that Eastern Europeans are becoming too expensive, more and more come from sub-Saharan and similar regions. In short, the imperial core demands a continuous supply of exploitable and cheap labor, whatever it takes. Is why the far right always struggles to fulfill promises of ethnic homogeneity and closed borders. There will be no one left to do the dirty work. Hans Jurgen over there will not dig that ditch, unclog your pipes. Ahmed, who just fled a bloody civil war and lost half of his family, will. This part right here where it says there would be no one to do the dirty work is so true. That's why when we talk about birth rates here, or when I have, people have said they're only concerned about white women's birth rates. And I do not believe that that's true. They want all of us to have children, but they want to keep people poor so that there's a certain underclass that will continue to service the wealthy and service white people and do the jobs that white people don't want to do. Stay together for the kids. This is all very clear and well documented, at least among leftist cycles. What perhaps is less obvious is the topic I want to expand on in this essay. Having children is not only a moral dilemma, but also most often the end of radical sentiment and, in many ways, freedom itself. It is very hard to protest, organize, riot, and set police cars on fire when you have mouths to feed and mortgages to pay. It is much harder to divorce and break up when young children are involved, even if and when the relationship turns abusive and violent. It is harder even to crave any sort of significant political change, no matter how unjust and parasitic the system becomes. In short, children, not growing older, is, as usually stated, makes you more conservative. How often have you come across that one couple that constantly fights and hates each other, but stays together for the kids? And then, unsurprisingly, yet, infuriatingly, she becomes pregnant again. Cheers, Mom. I hope you don't read this. He said, cheers, Mom. He's talking to his mom. The craving for a stable status quo is even more common in cultures where divorces and breakups are seen as personal failure or an insult to God, such as the Bosnian Catholic conservative nation I come from. Woman, what the F? You want to scream, but you don't. They accept their status quo. They stay together for the damn kids, a great Blink 182 song. They struggle to keep those mouths fed and warm. They cower at the mention of change. Controlling and abusing your partner is just so much easier when you can hold the kids over them. It's on them to take the risk of change then, on them if the children suffer. It is understandable, really, and despite my tone, I do not condemn anyone. Do whatever you want, man, woman, it's your life. Have as many children as you like and deal with the consequences, good and bad. Follow the script or don't. Hate local politics, fascism rising in your neighborhood, considering moving to a different country, think of the children first. Not sure about purchasing a new car or video game console, not sure about taking up an expensive hobby, think of the children. What about their needs? Struggling to make ends meet, your house taken from you, debt crushing your will to continue, you failed your kids. It often appears to me that the majority of people blindly follow certain scripts in life: school, marriage, house, children, retirement, death, written and propagated by instructions, written and propagated by institutions. Sorry, I couldn't see the bottom. Without ever questioning their validity. Does the script truly make you happy? Perhaps it doesn't, and you know it, but it's too late now, isn't it? You're in too deep. People are depending on you. There's bills to pay. Your midlife crisis can be treated with drugs. You'll get over it. On your deathbed, you'll say, I did my duty, and people will understand. All of us who work and pay bills are cogs in an abstract machine. We know that. It's just that having children turns you into a particularly well-oiled cog. No more hiccups, no more setbacks, no more holding up the conveyor belt. You are a perfect machine. Families are easy to coerce into doing things they don't want. They have too much to lose. If I lose my job, fail to pay my bills, and become homeless, a few people will be sad and perhaps offer me a place to stay. But no children will be traumatized and hurt. It will be just me and no one to forcibly accompany my abyss. So yes, governments and ruling classes and corporations want you to have as many children as possible. They crave those sweet, sweet, disillusioned and coerced workers, and they will hold your children over you, demanding absolute obedience. Should that stop you from having children if you want them? No. Live your only life the way you see fit. There is no honor in being a martyr and sacrificing your happiness. No one will reward you, and death awaits us all anyway. This is the absurdity of existence, and this is your life. Thank you for reading Antonio Melonio. That essay was amazing, and it goes right along with all of the things that I've been talking about. It's way too expensive. You have to go to work. You have no choice but to go to work. But they keep making things harder for people. They make it harder for women to go to work, despite the fact that they want children and children are expensive. Food is expensive. Everything, housing shortages, housing is expensive, yet they want women to stay in the home. It is wild how they don't pay attention, and government and politics is just dumb right now. Anyways, hopefully you have enjoyed this whole thing. I am still on team let the birth rate plummet to hell. Where do you lay? Join the conversation, like, comment, and share.
If you don't have as much of an investment in the future of this country, maybe you shouldn't get nearly the same voice. When you go to the polls in this country as a parent, you should have more power. You should have more of an ability to speak your voice in our democratic republic than people who don't have kids. Let's face the consequences and the reality. Let's give votes to all children in this country, but let's give control over those votes to the parents of those children.